Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdsson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by Tim Pachote, the Liberty Advisor, Certified Financial Planner, and we're going to get into what's been happening lately at Wells Fargo, which is very, very strange. You know, Wells Fargo is one of my favorite banks to make fun of because it's insane that they are even allowed to exist after all the scandals over the years. This out of WND.com. It says, I need my money now. Customers at top U.S. bank rage over missing deposits from accounts. This out of Natural News. Glitch. Wells Fargo bashed by bank account holders over missing deposits. Now, it's been about 5 days, and there's still a lot of people that aren't getting their money back yet. And this out of Fox Business, it says, Wells Fargo fixing tech issues after customers report missing deposit transactions. Wells Fargo customers ran into a similar issue in March. So this isn't the first time. They've been creating fake bank accounts. This out of journalnow.com. Wells Fargo faces federal lawsuit alleging opening unauthorized accounts. And I told you, there's been a lot of issues. Businessinsurance.com says former Wells Fargo exec faces prison over fake account scandal, which was back in March. And out of Forbes magazine, it says Wells Fargo hammered by feds for auto loan insurance scam. This is back in April of 2018. We've been reporting on it since then. In fact, you know, Wells Fargo is a company I've been reporting on since about 2014 with all their scandals. If you go down the timeline of their scandals, it's absolutely ridiculous, including creating fake insurance and repossessing people's vehicles, people defaulting on their mortgage over fake secondary mortgages that people didn't actually have. Many people have gone to jail over corruption. Many people have had to pay a lot of money. And over time, they've paid almost $10 billion just in 7 years over issues with regulators and stakeholders. And this is at the same time as we see a lot of evidence going forward about people losing their bank accounts and being unbanked, not being able to access their funds. This out of Zero Hedge, debanked. It's only a matter of time before it happens to you. Millions of accounts have been closed over the last few months. Millions. And this is not anything short of extraordinary because, as we see these issues at Wells Fargo, you have to start to wonder if it correlates at all with that debanking, and they're overdrafting people's accounts and shutting people down and giving people bad credit scores, all based on, this obvious fraud. And, I have seen people like, Nigel Farage, Kanye West, and others lose their bank accounts over political views. There's a recent story out of the UK, 1,000 people a week losing their bank accounts over political views, and worldwide we're seeing millions and millions. So this is an issue that could very well affect you sitting at home today. So I urge people to get prepared today. But before we get into it with Tim, who's going to go over this issue, because of course it's an issue that a lot of people who want to go to a financial advisor have, is what if they debank me, and what happens when a bank is defrauding people who have money in their accounts. And of course, with that said, how can I keep my money safe from this kind of situation? It's something that we need to break down. So before we do, I urge people to check out that bit.ly link for Tim, of course, the Liberty Advisor, Tim Pachote. You get a free initial consultation, a free portfolio review if you go and sign up for a call with him today. It is in the description of this video. And of course, as always, my friends, make sure to check out heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Use code WAM, W-A-M, and you get free shipping on much of those products. Remember, in the face of them closing bank accounts, if you get left in the dust one of these days, which banks are really good at doing, they've done it to me recently on several accounts, it's good to at least have some food backed up, not to mention the control collapse of the supply chain, inflation, mRNA meat, all of that, you name it. So obviously there is a lot that we need to get prepared for. Tim, can you kind of go into why this issue of people getting their bank accounts randomly shut down or overdrafted or these fake insurance scams, and of course on top of that all the debanking we're seeing lately? What do we need to know about these companies doing this kind of stuff, and what can people do to protect themselves?
Well, I think the main thing you need to know is that they can do it, they will do it, and they are doing it, and they have been doing it. And so what was something that we were theorizing has now unfortunately come to pass. And this is before even the CBDC is even announced. And actually, it sounds like a lot of this was going on in the UK. But when you take a look at a 100,000-foot view, the only reason why things, appear, I'll use okay in air quotes for anyone listening to us on a podcast. The only reason it appears okay is because the banks have a massive bailout right now in the form of the BTFP program, which is the Bank Term Funding Program, which essentially they get to take their bonds that have lost tons and tons of value, probably over about $1 trillion of value, and then they get to then trade that back in to this special facility for 100 cents on the dollar. And so right now, as of this is updated every Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. We don't have the numbers from today yet, but looking at last week's numbers, we're hitting a record right now. We're hitting an absolute record in terms of, so if people want to act like, oh, things are great, things are all hunky-dory. So if Josh, you want to look up FRED, BTFP, so FRED stands for the Federal Reserve Economic Database, and that's where we're seeing these numbers. And also, taking a look at things like the entire money supply, whether you want to look at M1, M2, or M3, which I don't even publish anymore, but, you're seeing that the total stock of money is going down. And so one of the things that Josh and I have been reporting since the beginning is that if you go back to last fall, they had the FDIC had their meeting where they're it's like a 3-hour long meeting where they're talking about having how there's only a certain amount of things they want to disclose to the public. We don't want to freak people out too bad, and maybe we'll ideally close banks on a Friday because that would be the ideal setting because you have the entire weekend. And so these are things that they have conjured up, and it's just always moving us from the next crisis to the next crisis. And so as we can see right now on the screen, you can see that this bank term funding program is getting worse and worse, that banks are going deeper and deeper into the hole, but they're really not going into the hole because they get to take an asset that has lost, let's say 30-40% value, trade it in temporarily, get the 100 cents back, and then I'm sure when their loan comes due in a year, then they'll probably just roll it over again and again. And I had a video in January of 22 predicting that this would be the response of when this ends up happening. And just so you can know, my shirt actually says trust no bank. I see that the microphone flag is sort of cutting it out a little bit, and actually it looks like it says trust bank, but it actually says trust no bank for the Bitcoin. So I just want to make sure that we have that. But ultimately, you are going to be insane to have more than $250,000 in a bank. I think you're insane to have, probably now, granted, depending on how much money, if you're worth 10, 20, $30 million and 25,000, 100,000, 200,000 is nothing for you. It's all perspective. It's all relative here. But, ultimately, I think that what they're going to do is they're probably going to have, shut down the banks. And they'll probably won't, let's say you have 200 grand in the bank, you'll probably get your 200 grand back eventually. And maybe they've got some sort of scheme or maybe if you're a white male Christian, you got to wait longer, or some rich guy, you got to wait a little longer. But what they'll probably do is you might get your $200,000 back, but then do they have some sort of program where they print trillions of dollars, and now your $200,000 buys you the equivalent of 50,000? And this is basically what they did in 1933 when they revalued the price of gold. And so I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it went from like $15, and then they then they gave people like 20 something, and then all of a sudden they revalued it at I think it was $35 an ounce. I want to say 33 because everything's 33, but I think it was $35. So people essentially were robbed about 70% of their purchasing power, but it's a more stealth form of robbing. So if I go and I take your money, I guess if the government does it, it's okay. But if you go and anyone else morally, that would not be okay. It's obviously not moral for the government to do it either.
Yeah.
But this whole thing is a racket, and I think it's only going to be getting worse as FedNow is coming out, as everything else.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And let's actually bring that up on the screen for a second, because when I see stuff that like I'm seeing out of Wells Fargo, it seems like a precursor where FedNow, for example, which is an intermediary, which is between you have to, if you send money out of many bank accounts in the United States, PayPal, Zelle, Cash App, it's going through FedNow first. And of course, that's the Federal Reserve's new digital system, and it's kind of a ledger in a lot of ways. At least it's being developed that way, because they are openly saying that what they're going to do with this is they're going to deem things that are socially, acceptable to go through there. So if something is socially unacceptable, it won't be allowed to go through. And on top of that, we see in the UK, for example, they are already just tapping people's bank accounts and taking money out of the accounts if their license plate went through an area that's a zero emission zone. And that's been happening for a while. And I see these things as related because it's all along the same agenda line. And of course, people were pissed off earlier this year, rather. Things happen real fast. This was only in July, but a lot has happened just since July 14th. But over the idea that the CBDC in the United Kingdom will give them the ability to seize the money out of your accounts at any time, because they
Bitcoin.
don't want you to. Yeah, well, they don't. Yeah, Bitcoin, but they don't want people to hoard money, they say. So if you don't spend the money in time, it'll just be taken out of your account. Now, that and social credit and carbon credits, all that stuff matched together, plus the usual banking fraud that we've been seeing for so many years, tells me that this might actually be a trial run, just like earlier this year when there was all those random EMP attacks suddenly, but they were like minor ones. And it's like, I wonder if that's a precursor to what is being planned next. Wells Fargo is one of the most embattled banks in the world, and it's probably going to be going under in the next several years, just based on their share value, their cash to deposit ratio, and of course, by the fact that all these banks are facing similar issues as SVB did. So when I see these issues and all these scandals, it's like, okay, let's throw them under the bus. They're like one of the most controversial banks, other than maybe JP Morgan, where they just got exposed helping Epstein hide money after he died, allegedly died. I don't think he actually died. Yeah, and Deutsche Bank and all those. And we see this happening to Wells Fargo right now after all these scandals. It seems like it's a precursor to what is being planned next. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. It could just be another glitch in that system, as they try to claim. It's a glitch. Don't worry. But is a glitch big enough to go out of the way, by its own code, and just start withdrawing randomly from random people's accounts all this money, and or putting them overdraft on their credit card, and then just go, oops, it's a glitch. So if it's a glitch, why didn't it happen to everyone else? If they're all in the same programming, why isn't it happening to everyone else? I think it's a precursor, and I think it's very dangerous going forward. But Tim, with this issue that I was just mentioning here with like Fed Now and all these things, it seems like we are seeing that normalization lately, with the collapse of banks earlier this year, with the push for Fed Now, with these ongoing scandals with Wells Fargo just stealing money out of people's accounts, with what we saw in Canada with the trucker protesters losing money out of their accounts. What do you think?
Well, just imagine how much worse it's going to get once everything is digital. I mean, it already pretty much is 98 and 99% digital, but they don't have that full. There are ways to opt out right now, but in the future, the ways to opt out are going to get increasingly more difficult. And so, I know a lot of people aren't, big into crypto or big into Bitcoin. It took me a while from when I first heard about it, under $1, to finally, and I poo-pooed all the same things that, some viewers listening now might be poo-pooing over the same things I was doing before. And obviously,
totally understandable too.
You want to do your own research. You shouldn't trust anyone, especially some random guys from the internet. And you want to not have all your eggs in the same basket. And one of the things that Mike Adams talked about, he had a podcast, maybe it was like 2 months ago, and on that podcast he was discussing, different things you should do to be financially resilient. And part of that is, having your bank account and getting it hooked up to a crypto exchange if you're not in crypto already, or if you already are in crypto, and even if you're not, maybe having a couple different banks, because it is one of these things where they do tend to sometimes shut down the link, or hey, your bank's not going to let you send money over to one of these exchanges. And so I think it really would behoove everybody to take Mike's advice on that and get maybe if you only have one bank account, maybe get another one, or maybe get two other ones. And so that way, if they try to shut down one, you can then easily send one to the other.
And it's not illegal to get a bank account in another country too. So there's other options depending on certain restrictions, country by country, with what might happen in one place. For example, I have an account in Canada, and I have an account in the United States. And that allows me, where, earlier last year, or in 2021, I guess now, or no, it's 2022, during the trucker protests, when they're shutting down all these accounts, they were also shutting down accounts of people who just like sent them a GoFundMe amount of money, which I did. So when I did that, immediately when all these bank accounts started getting shut down, I was at risk of losing mine. It didn't happen. It happened to people I know. But what I do know is I felt comfortable with the fact that at least I had something outside of that Canadian banking system.
Can I talk about what happened to me, what the email I got today? I mean, it's going to.
Oh yeah.
I don't actually have it right in front of me.
It's ridiculous.
So, my girlfriend, I had too much voltage running through one of the like cigarette lighters. Not to smoke cigarettes, but to, a 12-volt lighter. And so we went to go order a new one, and I'm wondering like, hey, where the heck has this thing been? Like, it probably should have been here by now, or should be getting here. And all of a sudden, I go back to my emails and I log on. It says order canceled, and I'm like, what? And so then I see they sent me another email, and I get 1 million a day, so it must have slipped by the cracks. And so it ended up saying that this was a high risk purchase. And we're talking like a $19.62 purchase here, Josh. It was a high-risk purchase, and I was reading down the different criteria that made it high risk, and using a VPN apparently is a high risk. So it's not like I was buying a car. It's not like I was buying some super expensive carbon fiber part. I was trying to buy a $19 cigarette outlet lighter thing, and it was, flagged for high risk, and they canceled the order and wouldn't send it. Now imagine, if bad people get in control of the AI. Well, hint, bad people are the ones who made the AI. Yeah. So you have that married to the CBDC, which is basically what WorldCoin is, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, your social credit score is down in the dumpsters. You've got to acquiesce, and then eventually, they'll even the holdouts will say, oh, well, if you just get your iris scanned or just get your palm scanned, then people will finally, just like there's people that finally caved in and got the vaccine, and then some of those people got fired or laid off anyways, and so they're gonna ratchet it up. And there's even people like the Brookings Institute, who a couple, like 3 years ago, was trying to theorize on what's the best way to get people vaccinated. And one of the schemes they came up with is, hey, what if we give everybody $1,000 a month in their account, but then they can't access the money in their account until 80% of, let's say, their neighborhood or their street or their city, their community or whatever is vaccinated. And so, you get people who are, struggling. We're in this cost of living crisis. They can't make ends meet, and all of a sudden, they've got, $20,000 sitting in the fictitious account that they can't access until 5 different holdouts in the street get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Well, then you're going to see people probably getting in arms, getting violent, getting super aggressive with the people, and I'm sure they'll leak probably the list of who did and who was, because HIPAA matters unless it's something the globalists want to push, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter anymore. So going back to the solutions of Mike Adams, having. And how many people do you know that have crypto that have never actually sent, let's say Bitcoin from one person to another, or Monero from one person to another?
And sorry to interrupt, by the way, Mike Adams does have a new website called decentralize.tv, which I urge people to check out, including a man by the name of Todd, who was working previously as Uncle V or Uncle Vigilante regarding Epic Cash, the privacy coin based on the Mimblewimble protocol that you've heard me talk about a lot, and definitely recommend as just a shout out to them. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Mike because a lot of people, they get into this whole of let's say Peter Schiff, they get into this mindset where because they trashed crypto at one point, then all of a sudden they've entrenched themselves in.
They refuse to admit they're wrong.
They refuse to admit, but a lot of people are admitting. There might be nefarious reasons for this, from the Larry Finks of the world, the Jamie Dimons of the world.
Yeah.
But when you've got a guy like Mike Adams, who several years ago he was very anti-crypto, and I stopped really listening to him because I'm like, hey, in my opinion, one of the main ways to defeat all this is decentralizing. And so I used to want to, first I was auditing the Fed, back when I was a younger an idiot and didn't really know it. Then I realized, okay, who's going to audit them? Okay, themselves. Yeah. I'm going to trust that. We need to shut it down. I spent a lot of energy on trying to shut down the Fed. Then I realized, instead of spending all my energy trying to fight this, why don't we just, figure out what the solution is and create our own game and put it over here? It's sort of like a Buckminster Fullister type thing. We need to change the entire game. And so Bitcoin and crypto and decentralized technologies can change the game. And then it really stepped up again when I started getting shadow banned off Facebook in 2016 after the 2016 selection. November 16th, 2016, had a fake news list go viral, over 99.99% shadow ban for the preceding 5 years. And so that then led me into a blessing in disguise of something like, oh, wait, with something like Ethereum, again, not investment advice, but you can build applications on these smart contract platforms where there is no one door to kick in. There is no one place for the FBI to then take all your servers or do something. So ultimately, decentralizing everything that makes sense to decentralize is the answer, taking power away from these criminals. It's the money is the main thing that gets them. And then the other things that they get you is, food and energy, which is why Kissinger, I don't have the exact quote right in front of me, but we mentioned it last time. But if you want to, you want to control a nation, control their energy. If you want to, control the people, control the food, and if you want to control the world, control the money. It's something like that.
Well, and Tim, I want to interrupt for one moment here because I want to do a video with you on this eventually, but regarding shrinkflation. But we're seeing a lot of stories like this. Don't get me started on Pringles. TikTok star exposes brands most guilty of shrinkflation as Starbucks comes under fire for selling sandwich the size of his palm. And we're seeing insane shrinkflation. Look at this bag of cereal here. When I was a kid, there was still shrinkflation happening, but it was at least 2/3 of the way up.
RX cereal, like prescription cereal?
I have no idea. It's I think it's some kind of protein cereal. And they're showing you open up a Pringles can. Remember Pringles cans when you were a kid, when you'd open them and they were right at the top? Tide Pods, which you should not eat, going from like a few years ago to today. And they'll say, oh, we have better technology in them now, and they're better dispersed, blah, 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 blah.
Most of the cereal is all crap they don't want to have
Yeah,
anyway,
and I don't want to get too heavily into shrinkflation today because I really want to do a video on this with Tim on that subject. But the thing is, they are desperate right now because they're doing everything they can to hide the realities, and everyone's catching on, even TikTok teens. And here's the thing. When all that's happening, you have that would have sounded funny like 20 years ago. TikTok teens, what the hell is that? But,
I was actually laughing, like, thinking, like, do I tell the story of why cereal was actually invented by Dr. Kellogg?
No, it's way too off. We'll get into it maybe in the shrinkflation
That's actually
one.
what I was saying.
But, oh, yeah, for like to stop people from having kids. Yeah, there's a lot to that. But, I mean, it
look
looks
up
like they're
Dr.
desperate.
Kellogg sometime if you want to see, why they are pushing cereal and breakfast so hard.
Yeah, he was a weirdo. But the whole idea is that now I have that in my head. The whole idea
I'm like,
is
wait,
that
did I
they
say
are
pushing breakfast hard? I mean, that's probably also another double
goodness.
entendre. But
yeah,
okay.
if you know about it, you're probably laughing right now. But when you see this desperation happening with the shrinkflation, what are they going to do next? Well, of course, they have to find a way when inflation goes through the roof and the economy is pulled out from underneath people's feet and the banks go down. They have to use it to their benefit in some way. So, well, in desperation, in pain, in suffering comes order, because if people aren't prepared today, later on they will be screwed when they're in a bread line or when they are on a CBDC, because they have no choice, because they can't access food, they can't access energy, they can't access social necessities, and you cannot access food and all these different things, or shelter, or whatever it might be, or travel, or be able to leave your neighborhood, or avoid the gulag without depending on the CBDC system, because all your money's in there. So another reason to not have all your money in the bank, another reason to get prepared in all these different ways, and we try to provide solutions in every way possible. So, I'm going to cut it off there. I urge people, again, to go and check out that bit.ly link for Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor. You can get a free initial consultation, a free portfolio review, and the reason I put that up immediately here is because it's one of those ways where if you're American, you can find, legal means around this insane system of enslavement. And there are options before you where you can do this. And I urge people to go and sign up for a phone call today, and you'll see why this is so important. Talking to Tim, talking about your own situation in life and how he can help you better, maintain that money that you worked hard for. And
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple-digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing. And everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up. If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you going to do? What's the choice that you're going to make?